Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the studio here at Hapa. I'm joined today by this gentleman here.
Marcus Bisong, I'm a product manager here at Hapa.
And I'm James McKenzie, I'm the sales director at Hapa. Today we have a very interesting presentation for you titled Digital Uplift and Agility in Pharma. You'll find out what that means as we go forwards. Of course, in preparation for this meeting today, I did what everybody does today, and I went to Google and typed in trends in pharma. And if you do that, what you'll find is that apparently the trends in pharma are artificial intelligence, machine learning, big data and analytics, additive manufacturing, blockchain, industry 4.0, augmented reality, etc., etc., etc. And when I saw this online, I thought to myself, well, I must be living in the Matrix and I must have taken the red pill, because in the pharmaceutical industry that I know, actually, although we're surrounded by digital technology and we live in a digital world, in pharma, we continue to work with disconnected analog tools. I have meetings with people talking about digital uplift who are still using embossing stations, mechanical stamps to print the variable data onto the edge of blisters. You know, maybe we could say that it's like having a compact cassette at a time when everybody should be using Spotify or Tidal. And as I say, I must have taken the red pill because I live in the real world. If I'd have taken the blue pill, then today I would probably be sitting on this beach, sipping a cocktail and enjoying myself. But that's actually not the story I want to tell with this picture. What I want to show you with this picture are three separate islands. And on these three separate islands live three separate tribes of people. They're separated by water, they're not connected. And those tribes go about their daily business developing ideas and creating processes, probably adding some Excel spreadsheets into the equation. And they're very efficient and they work very nicely independently. The problem is that these three islands are required to collaborate with each other, and their processes and their language and their tools don't line up in order to give an efficient collaboration. And we can liken this to what is happening in pharma today. On the left-hand island, perhaps, this is production planning and artwork development. In the middle, maybe we've got filling and packing. And then on the right-hand side, we've got distribution and supply chain. And these disconnected islands are the root of a lot of waste inside the pharmaceutical industry. Today, we'd like to explain to you how we can go about connecting these islands together using digital tools. So let's talk a little bit about what Hapa do. What we do is really cool. You know, we have fantastic technology. We've been in the business for a long time. In fact, next year we will celebrate our 50th year delivering online foil printing systems to the pharmaceutical industry. This more recent picture here from a European customer shows a late-stage customization line where we print directly onto finished cut blisters in CMYK. So this is a full-color print. Essentially, the technology could print your photograph onto the blister. This is another cool picture taken during the pandemic. Obviously, you see the masks. This is the governor of Sao Paulo visiting one of my customers in Brazil. And he's talking to the plant director, looking over a COVID line. And this particular COVID line, as you can see in the background, has an online digital label printer, printing the labels just in time, and then they're applied to the container. It's actually a Bausch & Strobel labeler. Another cool picture, this time taken at on a blister tablets packing factory. Here we see the Hapa printer just newly installed, again during the pandemic. And again, this is a CMYK printer, printing the foil just in time on the packaging line and being sealed and going down through the rest of the process. So what we do is cool, but why we do it is even cooler. And our purpose at Hapa, and I think also your purpose, is to make sure that pharmaceutical products find their way to the patient exactly when they are needed. And at Hapa, we've recently redeveloped our own purpose and mission statements, and our purpose statement is exactly aligned with this. We see ourselves as a company who help pharmaceutical manufacturers to be faster and more agile, and to ensure that the pharmaceutical medications find their way to the patient exactly when they're needed. So how are we doing, actually? Well, not bad, but not brilliant. What we can say is that if you go to Google again and you check, and you Google stockouts, get some stockout data, then what you can find is that in 2019 in the Netherlands, there were 800 stockouts. And in the same year in Switzerland, there were 561 stockouts. So 800 times when a pharmaceutical product was not available for the patient, which can be, of course, potentially catastrophic. And of course, what's very interesting is to drill into the reasons why these stockouts occur. And again, Google has the answer. You can find this information. I put this table together based on information from the net, and you can start to see the reasons why these stockouts are occurring. Forecast error, regulatory issues, manufacturing quality issues, and then there are some other things related to transportation and warehouse and so on, but they're very minor compared to the big three. Now, you know, when people want to be economical with the truth, they use complicated words to distract people. And I see these first 3 points as exactly that. Forecast error. Let me translate that for you. Forecast error is there was volatility in the market and production was not agile and quick enough to react to the market demand. Regulatory issues. The artwork needed to change, and our processes are so slow and so analog that we couldn't be agile enough to react quickly. Manufacturing quality issues, a coding digit broke on the blister machine and we had to recall a batch, or somebody put the wrong label onto the machine and we had to scrap a batch, or whatever. You get the point. Most of these things are in production, and most of these things are certainly preventable. So what I'd like to do now at this point is to hand over to Marcus again, and he's going to talk to us a little bit about digital transformation, more from a software angle. Marcus.
Thanks a lot, James. I really liked your story about the disconnected island. Good morning, everyone. My name is Marcus Bisang. I'm here at Hapa, responsible in my role of a product manager for the future software strategy and the future software products. I've been working in various positions since the late 80s, the beginning 90s in the printing industry. This was exactly the time where all these desktop publishing applications came up. Things like PageMaker, Quark Express, installed on a Macintosh in combination with PostScript, with the independent printer description language. Everybody was able to be a printing expert. You just have to be brave enough to print on file print. Honestly, I have to disappoint you when you have expected that we will show a new software from Hapa. That's a little bit too early for us, but we will do that definitely later this year. But I want to talk a little bit about designing a software and how we think a software should be. It is a little bit like this spider web behind me. You have to look for the right position. You have to search for the right connection point for the spider, the branches, the wall, the floor, whatever, before you can start with designing a software. Last but not least, you have to adjust or improve this web every day in a new way. And this is similar like Industry 4.0. When I've talked with a lot of people in the past, there are some people who are thinking Industry 4.0 is something what you can buy. It is one step what you have to do and then you're done. This is from my point of view, a completely wrong approach. That means if you don't get up in the morning and you're thinking about how you can improve your workflows, your processes, and so on, then you are already lost. So you need it constantly improved then. But let me show you another picture. Let's talk a little bit about water. We all know this well-known cycle or workflow. The sun is shining, clouds are building, the rains drop down, and the water fills up again. This is something what happens for thousands, for millions of years in the past, or nowadays as well. And when we are looking back to the first humans, when they have traveled, it was not possible to just go from A to B. It was always, or more like going from one water hole to another water hole. And when you now imagine water is data, going back to nowadays, you see how complicated this is. It was not very convenient to travel around or to get to these data or waters. Things like automation, avoiding media breaks, providing an end-to-end workflow and a great user experience are important. And that's the way we want to create our software as well. When we're looking back to the ancient Romans, they brought water into the cities. They optimized the water with heat and they built sewage systems, flood protection, they built roads. Nowadays we would talk about user experience, and they built their empire not only with the help of weapons. It was just because it was more convenient to live in a Roman city. That means user experience is one of the most important things when you are building a software. That brings up to a simple faucet, we know in our times. Two controls, you can adjust the flow rate, you can adjust the temperature. It is really easy to understand user interface, and this is exactly what we want to do at Hapa as well. When we're talking about end-to-end workflow between the both ends, you have a lot of softwares in the most of the case on customer side. We don't think we can change everything in one step. That means we have to create our software as flexible as possible that we can implement our solutions into existing workflows. Let's talk a little bit about media breaks. We all know that's something that we don't like. Just thinking about importing data into an Excel spreadsheet or exporting it. Sometimes I ask, why do I have to explain my computer how a CSV should be formatted that it can be imported? That's something what I really not understand. And as well in the highly regulated pharmaceutical industry, we see a number of optimization opportunities, whether in the generation of print data or meaning the design of the artwork, or in the transmission or verification of these data. The challenge is how you make sure that everything is done completely and correctly. I'm talking about the fonts, the colors, and so on, a lot of things what you have to take care of. For us at Hapa, the data is very important, and it's the reason why we have decided to go with our futures product with a PDF, a new standard or a new way to transport the artwork to our print machines. That means we all know a PDF is not a PDF. Sometimes there are different ways to create PDFs, and for that we need as well a check before. We're talking here in the printing industry about a pre-flight. Or when you think about future applications like e-commerce application and so on, approval processes, a PDF is much more easier to handle in this kind of stuff. As Hapa, we want to support you as customer, and we will bring several solutions into the market in a couple of years that will help you to optimize your agility and thus time to market. And we want to break here in new grounds. Let me give you another picture, just to explain a little bit how complicated building software can be. Let's assume you want to take a trip. The question is, do you get in the car and drive off, Or do you take the bicycle because you want to see the landscape? Or you take the train because it's more comfortable? Or do you need to take the plane because the distance is too long? As you can see, there are a lot of possibilities to travel. And especially for me, when I'm just driving from Switzerland, I'm living more in the east of Switzerland to Germany, I have a couple of routes available. That means when I'm driving around the Lake of Constance on Austrian roads, I have to think about the toll. On Austrian roads, I need to pay toll, and I have to decide how long I want to pay for the toll just for one day. There are different rates for that, or for the whole year, or something between. Or in Germany, a couple of cities, you need a sticker on your front window that allows you to go into the city. There's some kind of environmental sticker which shows the policeman that you are allowed to go there. As you can see, everything is very complex when you're thinking about that, what we are doing every day, or just thinking about when you're traveling, the power adapters, the currencies. Do you need a passport or an ID card? A lot of things what you have to think about. And that brings us to the world of software. When you're looking at a modern map like those from Apple or Google, there are a lot more possible than just a map with the support of GPS, which will guide you to a city or whatever. This is more a planning tool, so you can use the same device mostly, or the same software, mostly you have it on your mobile phone for using a train, a plane, or just a subway. And from my own experience, I can tell you, there is sometimes really difficult to find the right subway when you want to travel to a meeting or whatever. And that brings me to the point. I don't want to talk much about how we want to create our software, but we think one of the main problems are around the the artwork, all the rules, the corporate identity, the definitions, the laws, the SOPs, all these complicated processes, the approval processes, control process, and so on. A lot of things what you have to think about when you are designing a workflow. And it is something what you want to do much easier than you are working nowadays. But for that, we need a new kind of thinking, a new vehicle to solve your problem. But we will talk about that a little bit more later this year, or maybe beginning next year. Then I would like to hand over again to my colleague James.
Thank you, Marcus. Thank you very much indeed. In the meantime, a question's come in from one of the delegates, and the question was how much money can be saved and how much in terms of time by using this software infrastructure to take, let's call it, disconnected analog systems and connect them digitally. The answer to that question is, of course, bespoke. It depends on the specific client that we're talking to. But we're talking to one client at the moment where we did a very detailed analysis, and the savings were in the millions per year. So the savings can be very, very significant. It does depend, of course, on how many lines you have and what the level of complexity is. But for that client, the savings are quite significant. If you're interested to drill in and try to make a calculation of how we can take waste out of that process, then please contact us after the event, and we'll be happy to put those calculations together for you. You know, as you can possibly tell from my accent, I'm from Liverpool, the English people in the call, and there is a canal which goes from Liverpool to another big city called Leeds in the north of the UK. It was built in the 1800s, and it's 79 miles long, and it has 79 locks along its journey. And in 1821, if you wanted to transport something, some goods, from Liverpool to Leeds, then it would take you around 2 days. And the reason for that is that you would take a step and then you would wait as the water level fills up and then you would carol. So a stop and wait process, a very analog process. Then, of course, by the 70s, the motorway network had begun, and you could make that same journey in about 2 hours. In 2021, though, we have the information superhighway, the internet, and this journey can be made actually in about 0.2 of a second. So this is what we're talking about doing in pharma now. We're talking about taking existing legacy analog processes, connecting them together digitally, and creating speed and cutting out waste from the process. I'd like to take a moment to talk about growth and complexity. You know, all businesses want to grow. We want to grow, you want to grow, and generally speaking, people want to grow faster than the market is growing. Unfortunately, this product doesn't exist. Miracle Grow, all-purpose sales growth, it doesn't exist. I really wish it did, but it doesn't. And so what companies are generally doing is they're going for new products, or they're going to new markets for existing products, or looking for new variations of existing products to extend patent and so on. And if all else fails, then simply buy a biotech company and grow that way. The fact is that growing in this way has an impact. There is an impact of growing with new products and etc. And that impact is SKU proliferation, increase in the number of SKUs, which has been the story of my career for the last 25 years. And one of the key targets for having a healthy supply chain is forecasting, making sure that you can deliver the product to the patient exactly when it's needed. And the thing is, if you're making aspirin, then you have a pretty good idea how much aspirin you're going to need in Q4. We can pretty well estimate how many people will have a headache. But if you're making an oncology product and you're supplying that to a market like Peru, for example, then it's very difficult to forecast how much of that product you're going to require. And then in the middle, we have more manageable order sizes, and these are generally called runners, repeaters, and strangers. This is a different picture telling the same story. So around 25 years ago, when I started in this industry, most of the batches that we saw actually were larger size batches. We talk about the European packs or the Americas packs. And then over time, the curve changed, and today it looks more like this. In other words, most of the business, certainly when we talk about prescription drug pharma, is in this area here, smaller volumes. There's another area, of course, of what we would call microbatches or nanobatches, which resides in this space just here. And this is the space which is usually reserved for late-stage customization. In other words, decoupling that production from the packaging line altogether. Of course, with all of the growth and the market volatility and the waste that is created through this SKU proliferation, the impact is on the bottom line. You're growing with the top line is all very good as a target, but ultimately, if it results in a reduction in the bottom line, then somebody's going to be very unhappy with that. And this is exactly what happens. And the question is, how do you manage that business, that growth, but manage it in a way that it doesn't disrupt your production, and manage it in a way that means you can be profitable? Most pharmaceutical companies will have KPIs that look maybe something like this. You know, everybody's looking to grow faster than the market, as we've said. All businesses are looking to reduce cost and reduce inventory. Being fast is a must in 2021. The world is used to order today, deliver tomorrow. So having the faster throughput time for smaller volumes is often a target. Improving the utilization or the OEE of packaging lines, making sure that the money-making machines actually run. And of course, the big one, reducing or eliminating stockouts. Key KPIs. Here's the problem. When you're growing with small volumes and your lines are choked, this is what happens to your KPIs. costs increase, inventory goes up, throughput times become longer, the utilization of the asset becomes lower, and the probability of a stockout actually increases. So what we can say is that business complexity coming from growth is actually a KPI killer. Let's talk very quickly then about how digital technology can help to change all of this. So online digital printing technology, just simply putting a printer into a packaging line, this is going to increase the agility for a pharmaceutical company. Forget the digital connectivity at the moment, just the action of having online printing makes a company more agile because you don't need to manage the complexity. However, there's a second dimension coming now that brings digital uplift, and that is that the software tools that connect all of the islands together cut out significant waste from the process. Marcus elaborated on what those things are, but essentially everything from artwork to finished product, and all of those processes in between. And the key challenges related to growth and production that I've just talked about, these can be managed with ease with the type of technology that I will show you in a few seconds. So what we can say is that Hapa can help you to compete in a digital world, allow you to not just talk about it, but actually do it by providing performance-enhancing digital technology that will give uplift for your production and, importantly, for the supply chain. So how do we do it? Well, we have digital products like the one in this picture, and we have full-color CMYK online printing technology that integrates into the blister line. This is a CMYK unit, as mentioned. We also have configurable single-color machines, which are able to adapt to any different type of packaging line. Then we have our so-called budget range, the Digimatic, where here we can integrate the machine in one standard configuration, but the machine has a very low cost. And then finally, the newest product that we're launching this year is a product called VDP, or Variable Data Printer. This is a unit configured only to add variable data. And while this won't take out inventory or complexity for managing orders, it really takes out a lot of waste for companies with bigger batches in printing the variable data, so you don't need to change embossing digits, you don't need to stop the line to change a thermal inkjet cartridge, or you have less rework, etc. A quick word about late-stage customization then. Typical production profile might look like this, where the line is stopped most of the time. And with late-stage customization, what you do is put all of those small runs together in one run. You create blank blisters and you free up capacity on the line. The process looks something like this, starting with blank blisters, as I say, into inventory, call them off, print them, pack them, and then immediately off to the market. I'm down to my last couple of slides now, so I'll skip this one. And simply put, all of this technology and all of this digital uplift does this to your KPIs. It changes the KPIs from oranges and reds back into greens, which is what we're looking for. You know, a few years ago, I bought my daughter a sand pit, and I was watching her there that day, and she was putting sand into the bucket, but the bucket was outside the sand pit. And as she was walking backwards and forwards, she was dropping sand on the floor. She only did it twice in the current state. And then I watched her go through a kind of Kaizen event. And you can imagine what she did. She placed the bucket closer to the sand pit. And in doing that, she had a 50% improvement in speed. She had less waste, more fun, and very importantly, a very proud daddy. So that's the end of my presentation today. I think we might have time for one question, but I hope you enjoyed it. As I said, if you have any questions, if you'd like us to drill into anything specific, then we can follow up afterwards. And this question I've already answered before. So if you have specific questions, please reach out to us and we'd be happy to